Welcome, everybody. My name is Karen Boss, and I am a senior editor at Charlesbridge Publishing. And I'm just so thrilled to be here today to talk with 4 authors of 4 Charlesbridge books that have either just come out or are coming out soon. And I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves to you so that we can get to know who each of them is.
Okay, well, I'm so glad to be here too. My name is Ana Siqueira. I'm the author of La Mala Suerte is Following Me, or La Mala Suerte Me Sigue in Spanish, and the illustrator is Carlos Velez Aguilera. And I'm a Spanish teacher, and I'm also a vovó and an abuela, and I have some other books published, picture books published, and I love teaching Spanish. That's why I really love that my books is also in Spanish.
I'm Gabriella Aldeman. Hi, I'm so glad to be here with all of you. I am the author of Squawk of Spanish, which came out in English and Spanish as Un Graznido en Español. And that's illustrated by the fabulous Romina Galota. And yeah, I'm a Panamanian American author, and I'm also an English to Spanish translator of children's books, and I also translate educational resources and for nonprofit organizations. And I live in Fairfax, Virginia, so I'm just happy to be here and with all of you.
Hi, I'm Denise Vega. I'm the author of Adela's Mariachi Band, and illustrated by Erica Rodriguez Medina, and I live in Denver, Colorado.
Hi, I'm Daniela Ramirez. I'm the author of Welcome Home, Esmerelda. It comes out in May 2025. It's also coming out in Spanish, Bienvenida, casa, and illustrated by the amazing Maribel Lechuga. I'm a Chicana writer. I live here in New Mexico, and I'm really happy to be here today.
Wonderful. So we are going to talk today about the importance of having contemporary Latine books readily available for kids. And we really think that it's important for kids to be able to see themselves in books. And we want literature in schools and libraries and in the home to be as diverse as possible. We think that books like this help kids form a positive sense of identity, right? And they can help children of all different backgrounds really understand different experiences too. The United States currently has more than 58 million Spanish speakers and 17% of the population that speaks Spanish in the United States. So there's a real call for having more books that not only show Spanish-speaking kids in them, but also books that are printed in Spanish. So the new books of each of these authors who just introduced themselves, La Mala Suerte is Following Me, Welcome Home, Esmerelda, Squawk of Spanish, and Adela's Marching Band, they are all have been or will be simultaneously released in an English edition and a Spanish edition. We're asked for more Spanish books all the time by our sales reps, so we're really thrilled at Charlesbridge to be able to do that. So let's dive right in with some questions. I'm going to ask each of you to answer this one. What is the main theme of your book? And what do you hope that your readers will learn or feel when they finish reading it? So I'm going to start with Denise for this one.
Well, thank you. So in Adela's Mariachi Band, I think my biggest theme was to follow your dream and you'll find your place. And there's also the theme of supportive family. And also the other underlying theme that may or may not come through is that when you want to do something, it can take a lot of practice to become good and proficient at it. And in the meantime, what you are able to do can contribute to a sense of belonging.
Fantastic. All right, Daniela, how about you?
Hi. So Welcome Home, Esmerelda focuses on a military child, Esmerelda. She's always lived far away from home. She's never lived close to extended family, and they're moving back to San Antonio. They're moving back to her family's hometown, but she has no connection to it. So the main theme for Esmerelda is dealing with this change. As a military child, she already deals with a lot of change. She's used to moving and changing schools, but for her, we see her go through this emotional journey of just worry piling on top of each other. She's wondering where she's going to fit in with her family, what her place is going to be. Thankfully, later on in the story, she's reminded about the things that make her feel at home, not home as in a place, but home within herself. So I really hope that when readers are able to experience Esmerelda's story, that they're reminded about the things that make them feel at home within themselves. And they're able to use that, because I think whether you're a child or you're an adult, when you're able to know the things that make you feel safe and comfortable, it can be really powerful.
Fantastic. Okay, Ana, how about you?
Okay, well, la mala suerte means the bad luck. And a lot of people think, okay, this book is about superstition. Yes, there will be superstition. When he opens the umbrella inside the house, la abuela is going to say, oh, la mala suerte is going to follow you. But I think for me, it's mostly about being proactive and trying to create your own luck. Of course, there are things you can't control, but the things that you can control, you have to try hard. So, for example, if you want to do very well on your soccer tournament, like Miguel had to do, you will practice, just like Denise was saying. You have to practice a lot. If you want to do well on your spelling test, you have to practice. So for me, the message that I want the kids to see, like, you want something, go for it, practice hard, be proactive, have some positive attitude, because if you have that bad attitude, it's not going to work, probably won't work. Right. So I think that is it. And of course, I wanted to have fun and laugh with Miguel, because I think Miguel was pretty funny. And the illustrations added a lot of humor.
Excellent. How about you, Gabriella?
Squawk of Spanish is all about Max and how he wants to speak the language of his grandma, which is Spanish, his heritage language. But he can't roll his R's. His cousins tease him about it. So I guess the theme is this language acquisition journey, that it's his own heritage language at the same time. And in exploring that, it explores courage and identity a little bit, because it's a lot tied into your own identity when it's your heritage language. So it emphasizes that courage and self-confidence, but the true center theme, I think it's a little bit similar to Denise and Anna's book, which is this effort over outcome. Learning a second language is hard, and it's especially hard when it's so tied to your identity. And yeah, I guess as a bilingual, bicultural mom, what I want from my kids, what I want from Max, and what I want from young readers is not perfection, but just to have the courage to embark on the journey and to keep trying.
Fantastic. All right. So whoever wants to answer this next one, you can just jump in. What was one of the biggest challenges while writing your manuscript or working on making the book? Did you have any fears about sharing the story with readers or with the marketplace?
I wouldn't mind jumping in, Karen, because it totally dovetails on what Gabriella said and Max's story. I'm Max. I'm not bilingual, so I had a little bit of imposter syndrome. Am I okay? Is it okay that I write this story? Yes, my grandfather and my uncle were in a mariachi band in their church, but is it okay for me to write it? I'm trying to learn Spanish. I cannot roll my R's. All of that is. So that was something that I struggled with as I was writing. And it's still something I feel even now as I'm sharing it with you.
Excellent. And I think in your book, Adela keeps trying to find her place, right? And so it sounds like you're very much living sort of the life of your character in some way.
I am. This is true. That's a great point. Thanks.
For me, a big challenge that I dealt with was I was just so focused on being as true and as authentic as possible to the experience of being a military child. I grew up as a military kid. I'm raising military kids. It's a very unique experience. So during my writing, all the way to editing with my editor, it was something I was always coming back to. Like, is this real? Are these the real feelings? How can I best show this and express this? So it was always something that was keeping me accountable as I was writing the story.
And it's an interesting question, because I think for me, my challenge came more in the afterwards in promoting the book, because so my book has Spanish right in the title. And I was thinking, well, okay, so I have this challenge of it very clearly is very niche because of the Spanish. And I have this challenge of, okay, I want this book to be in the hands of kids that need it most, the kids like Max. But then I also want everybody to know that this book is accessible to them. Like, it is a fun book to read. It's a good story. I felt that in promotion, and I did two things. I actually partnered with an organization called Everybody Wins DC to do a donation campaign and collect books for underserved children in the Washington, D.C. area, especially those students that come from Spanish-speaking families. And then for just the kids and the toddlers that walk into my story time, I had this parrot puppets made. And so I would tell them, we're going to read this story. And Max doesn't want to speak Spanish, but we're going to help him. And we all get parrot puppets because really the story's in English, right? And the Spanish throughout is Lorito, the parrot, translating and saying, we're going to bake. So leche. And then everybody goes, can we say leche? And it really did help because at the end of the book, the Spanish became so interactive. It was a game. It was something they had already said those words out loud. So that helped a lot. But yes, in promoting and saying like, this book could be for everybody, I think that was where I felt that was the challenge.
That's great. So this transitions us to what the next question was going to be, which is about that there are different audiences for these books, right? And one could look at them as a group and say, these books are for, Spanish-speaking kids or kids who have Spanish as their heritage language and maybe who aren't bilingual yet or maybe won't be, but it's there's commonalities, of course, but then there are different audiences as well. So Ana, I want to ask you, what audience do you think you were writing for when you set out to create Miguel's story?
It's kind of hard for me because I'm a Spanish teacher and I want to reach all the kids. And I think all the kids, kids love learning language. When you get to the high school, not everybody loves learning, but kids love. And when I write with the Spanish words, of course, they're not going to learn Spanish just by reading a book with Spanish sprinkled throughout. But I want to get maybe motivated. Oh, I want to learn that language. But I think for me, I try, as Gabriella said, I did have a problem with the promotion too, because some people, I was in a book fair and people say, oh, this book is Spanish. I said, no, this one here, La Mala Suerte Me Sigue, is in Spanish. This one says Following Me, it is in English. I would love to reach kids in general, Of course, also I want to reach teachers and librarians so they can put that in their hands. And I think it's important, as Gabriella said, that when they see the title has some Spanish words, some people are like, oh, this is in Spanish, and they close down. So this is a little bit of a challenge sometimes. But I would like to reach all the kids. And I see, of course, I will reach a lot of kids who like soccer because Miguel loves soccer. And, they're very active kids. And I don't know, probably a lot of Hispanic families who are also into superstitions, and they like to discuss that.
Yeah, so this is one of the things that I love about all four books is that there is a specific audience, I think, and then there's the general broader audience. And I think one of the challenges, as Gabriella said, and as Ana was just describing, is where potentially where English-speaking gatekeepers might think that their kids are not the audience for your book, right? But they are. I think that's one of the challenges for basically any book, right? So we see a book that's about, camping, let's say, and the parents say, well, we don't camp, we don't want any part of that. But really the book is about making a new friend, right? So it's always a challenge, I think. And I think one of the things that's great about picture books in particular is what can be shown on the cover to really broaden it out some, right? So many of you have covers of your books that really do show that this is a book that can be for everybody, right? So I want to go over to Daniela now and ask, can you talk a little bit about your personal experience that was brought into writing the story Welcome Home, Esmerelda? Because I know that there is some personal experience behind it, but also did you need to do research for any part of it when you were writing that story?
When I first got the idea for the story, it was a tiny little memory that I had in my head. So as I mentioned, I was a military kid growing up, and we lived overseas in Germany for 4 years when I was fairly young. And we came back to Texas when I was 6. And I had to be reintroduced to my extended family. That was the 90s. So like we used the phone sometimes and like letters, but like I wasn't FaceTiming with my grandma at the time. So I had to be reintroduced to everybody. And I have a very specific memory of how my grandma was with me in the airport in San Antonio when I came back. And so it stayed with me. I knew that I wanted to build a story around that. I knew I wanted to add in some personal stuff about like my relationship that I had with my abuela, what it was like being a kid growing up, and also what I see my own kids going through with my husband's career in the Air Force, with moving, leaving friends behind. I knew I wanted to add that stuff, and I knew I had to fictionalize some other things around it as well. But I'm really happy with how it turned out. Esmerelda's abuela is 100% my abuela. Like that was something that was really special that I wanted to write into the story. Her honesty, her compassion, to really just celebrate the relationship that I had with her, and to also show how important those relationships can be for kids, and that even if you live far away from your extended family, that it's still possible to build the strength of those relationships and carry them with you.
Excellent. And Gabriella, I know that you have personal experience that lends itself into Squawk of Spanish. Do you want to share that?
Yeah, so I wrote this book to explore a bit of what my son was going through. So Max is basically my son. And funny story, this past Mother's Day, he gives me a coffee cup that says, be careful or you'll end up in my book. So he's good with it. He's excited. I wrote this book inspired by my son's experience. So he was born in the United States with a bilingual Hispanic mom and American-born English-speaking dad. And when my mom comes to visit from Panama, this definitely happens where he's usually a chatterbox, but instead you kind of see them come together and they play board games, sometimes video games, they share hugs or food. But it really takes a while for those long Spanish words to come out dry and rusty. And I use those words in the book. And I remember just thinking about it, that it was kind of this rustiness. But like Daniela said, it also very much, I really wanted to honor my mom in the book, because one of the things it was surprising to me in the best way, that my mom was just incredibly patient and loving and just kind of giving him that space without pushing that part of him.
That's great. You mentioned, Denise, that you have family members who were in mariachi bands, but did you also still need to do research for the story?
I did. Yeah, I wanted to be sure I got things right. I've watched them, I love the music personally. So I was watching, I was online reading and talking to people, and definitely had to do the research to make sure I got the instruments right, and also things I was saying in my author's note and that kind of thing. My tia Evelyn is named in the book. She and the uncle who was in the band had taken my father and I to Mexico, and we got to see where my grandfather lived and grew up, went to school a number of years ago, and that was amazing and great for me, because it was a way to touch that part of my heritage that I hadn't really known before that intimately.
That's great. Excellent. Ana, you are a vovo and an abuela, you said in your introduction.
Mm-hmm.
And so are you an abuela that would tell a poor grandchild that he was going to have Miss Mala Suerte follow him, or what?
No, I'm not that kind of superstition. My only superstition is like, for example, if I'm watching a Brazilian soccer game and I'm wearing this dress and they win, I have to wear this dress for all the games. I have this kind of superstition, but I'm not that superstitious. But what I want to say about my experience, this book was mainly for my husband. because my husband has a very negative attitude. I'm very positive and he's very negative. So he's always like, oh, that's never going to happen. No, I won't be able to do it. And then he would always say something about La Mala Suerte following him. And then I said, I have to write a book for him to see that, he needs to change the attitude, because that's what I believe. If you change your attitude, a lot of things can work out. Of course, not everything, but you can make your own luck.
That's excellent. So, Ana, can you remind me, you have one page of back matter in your book that's about superstitions from other parts of the world as well. Can you remind me, did I make you do that research, or did you have that in there originally?
I suggested.
Okay.
So I suggest the back matter, and I did the research. I love doing the research because I discovered that most superstitions are universal. Most superstitions like the umbrella, the black cat, the number 13 came like from a long, long, long time ago, from Rome, from Greece. Of course, there are some specific to each country, and I researched that, but there are many that are universal.
Let's talk for a minute about how you think that children's publishing is changing in terms of representation for different kids and in the books that are available, and particularly for Latine stories. So who wants to jump in first there?
I can jump in.
Okay.
I don't know if you know, I'm the co-founder of the Latinx pitch. This last time we did on our website, and we had more than 100 requests. So that was pretty positive. I think it's changing, like it's getting a little better, but you still have a tough road. For example, one time I sent a story and this editor said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I already have a superhero story from a Latina." And I said, "Excuse me, how many American superhero stories there are?" He said, "I love the story. I love your writing, but I already have a superhero story." So you will hear things like that, or you will hear things like Joana Pastro, she wrote about Festa Junina, and it took a while for her she sold that book. The Festa Junina is a party in Brazil, very popular. And they said, "Oh, we don't know how to market that. We love the story. Everything looks fine." And her editor, and he said, "No, we don't know how to market the story." So you still have, it's still harder for us to reach the editors, because some of them will not understand your style of writing the story or your culture, or it shouldn't be like this. You are not being Mexican enough, or you're not being Brazilian enough. So it's a tough road, but I think it's getting better, and people are more conscious about the need of books for Latino kids, but it's still tough.
Who else wants to jump in on that one?
We've definitely seen more books, which is wonderful, and that representation is wonderful. But that representation needs to also be on the other side of the desk, or the people on the other side of the desk, such as yourself, Karen, are really open to learning and understanding and all of that, so that those people are getting the cultures and having that sensitivity and willingness to learn and make mistakes and learn again.
Yeah, I think you're right about that part of it. I think that publishing continues to be much too white of an institution, and part of it is just straight up representation and diversity, but part of it is who's making the decisions about what books are getting published. And even once they've made that decision, how are they working cross-culturally with those creators, and are they doing that in a way that is welcoming to those creators and also doing the book the best service that it needs, right, in order for it to be a true representation once it gets to the market. Okay, let's go to a little game. We're going to play a little statistics game. Nobody expects you to know the answers, but maybe you will, and we're going to all learn something. Which state has the highest percentage of Latina children aged 15 to 18? Okay, Ana.
California?
Nope, it's not California. Go ahead, Gabriella.
Texas?
No, it's not Texas. Daniela.
New Mexico?
Is New Mexico, yes.
And I was like, I don't know. I was going to say all three of those, but in that order.
Daniela, do you want to guess what the percentage is?
I'd say 40%.
Okay, anybody? Now let's do like little Price is Right. Do we think it's higher or lower than that?
think maybe
I think it's right
little bit
about
higher.
there.
Yeah, a little higher maybe.
Okay, the answer is 61%.
Wow, I didn't actually.
61%
Wow.
of school-age kids in New Mexico are Latine. So this is like enormous information in my mind, right?
Yes. Wow.
Okay, so let's do the next question. So how many states are there where more than 50% of kids aged 5 to 18 are Latine?
3.
Okay, so Anna's guessing 3. That's not correct. Anyone else want to guess based off that?
I would say 2.
All right, Daniela, 2. Okay, Daniela. Yes. Okay. 2.
I was going to say it can't be that many.
No, it's not that many. So it's New Mexico with 61% that we already talked about. And what is the other one with more than 50%?
Is it Florida?
Nope. Somebody guessed it before for the number
It was
one.
Texas.
Texas?
No.
Oh.
Oh, California.
It's California.
Okay.
Yes, it's California.
Yeah, at least I
Now,
got close.
This is what so Mexico has 61% and California, it's higher than 50%, but what percent do you think it is?
Oh,
57.
So that's probably what I would have guessed too, right? Because it's not that much lower than the 61.
Yeah.
It's not. It's 52%.
Wow. Okay.
So it is
just
9 percentage points lower than the number one state, right? So I thought that was really interesting as well. Okay, so now name the 5 states with the highest percentage of kids aged 5 to 18. So you already know 2 of them. So number 1 is
Mexico,
New
California,
Mexico, number 2 is California. Okay, what are the other
Texas,
3?
Texas,
Texas?
Florida.
No, Florida's
No?
not in there.
I'm not sure what my own state is. My own state.
New York?
No.
No.
Arizona.
Arizona, yes, that is number 4.
Arizona.
And then Nevada.
And then Nevada. Yes. So California is 52%. Then we have Texas at 49%. Then Arizona at 44%. And then Nevada at 41%.
Wow.
But this is the fun fact related to that. The next highest after those 5 is Colorado.
Yeah, I see that.
And it has only 31%.
Yeah.
So it's a 10% jump from those top 5 to the next one, which is really interesting. All of those statistics come from 2020's census data. And big shout out to Daniela for knowing lots of. So yay.
I'm glad New Mexico's number 1. That's all.
Yeah.
There you go. Excellent. All right, so let's go to another question now, which is what advice would you give to aspiring writers, especially those from underrepresented backgrounds? Does anyone have a good piece of advice they want to share?
The first one is mentorship. There's lots of different ways to find a mentor. There's lots of great programs that different organizations have. There's also the old-fashioned way of just meeting someone, right? Making that connection. I actually have a really great mentor that I've worked with for a long time, and I met her at a writing conference in Colorado, actually. And the other thing would be building up your writing community. I feel like that has been like the biggest thing that helped me. It's so important to have trusted friends around you. One, for feedback, of course, and the other thing is for support. Traditional publishing is a wonderful dream come true for all of us, but it also has a lot of highs and a lot of lows and a lot of things in between. And it's really important that you surround yourself with that community. So yeah, that's my biggest piece of advice.
I completely agree with the community. I was going to say that's something like that too. I remember reading Gabriella's Squawk of Spanish when she applied for a mentorship. So Las Musas have a mentorship program. Mm-hmm. We have the Latinx pitch that is for you to pitch and try to find representation, but also like your critique group, as Daniela said, and try to learn as much as you can. As Miguel said, you can make your own luck. Of course, unfortunately, in this publishing world, we don't have control of almost anything. The only thing you can control is yourself, right? So you can control, read a lot of books, write a lot of stories. Don't be stuck in one story, because sometimes when we start, we write this first story and we think, oh my God, this story is so amazing. And then you keep revising. Like my first debut book, Bella's Recipe for Success, I think I revised at least 100 times. So you get stuck in one story, and so just keep writing story, keep reading, take classes. Like some are free, some are not. So of course you have to see your budget, what you can, but invest in yourself, because if you were going to be a doctor, you would need to take classes, right? So if you want to be a writer, you might need to take some class or read books. There are some books on writing crafts. So go a lot to your library and get a lot of books and support each other, get into the community, and get a critique group. A strong critique group will help you a lot. I'm very proud to say that my first critique group that I created, because I was not in a critique group, so I created one. Las Chicas Latinas is the name of my group. And everybody now has a book coming out. It already came out or is coming out. So we are very happy to work together and support each other. So I think that's very important.
That's excellent. Denise, what's your advice for people?
Echoing, just totally agree with Daniela and Ana. And then as far as the actual writing itself, I think it's really important to be true to yourself. We hear, follow your passion, follow your love. Absolutely. Follow the things that you're interested in, even if you don't know much about them. And also follow your emotions. Like, what do you really care about? What makes you angry? What makes you happy? I mean, those things are going to go into that book, and that emotional resonance, I think, is really what can push a book to another level and really resonate and connect with your readers.
Yeah, I agree. You really need to connect with the book, especially because you'll be reading it a million times. You have to love that book. And yeah, I agree with everyone. My number one would be to find community. There's so much vulnerability that goes into being an author. We put a lot of ourselves into our books, and then so much is out of our control. And even if we have amazing family and friends, if you're not going through it, you might not know what it. So yeah, just find that community that's kind of going through the same things you're going through. I don't know if it's a mentorship program, but Karen, can you talk about the Charlesbridge Connection program? Is that still a thing? And that is for, I want to say, underrepresented backgrounds as well.
Yeah, so did you come through Connections?
Yes.
Okay, so the Charlesbridge Connections program is open to unpublished authors of color, BIPOC creators, and actually and illustrators too. It's not just writers. And you apply through that program. It is on the Charlesbridge website. You can find it there. You are matched with an editor or with a designer if you're an illustrator, and you get a 30-minute Zoom meeting with them to talk about your project. So I'm assuming, Gabriella, that you were matched with Monica for that, right? Okay, so Monica Perez, who used to be at Charlesbridge, met with you through that program. And it is fairly, I will say, and I think it's important to say, that it is very unusual for a project to be acquired through that program. So Gabriella, that's a very unusual thing that happened with you. And I'm saying that because I think it's important that anyone listening to this who wants to apply through that program does understand that it does not necessarily or almost ever lead to publication, but it is an invaluable, I think, 30 minutes that someone gets to spend with an editor to talk about that project, and also to talk about anything that the person wants to ask about that has to do with publishing as well. It doesn't have to be just focused on the manuscript. So yes, we are still running that program. I think we're finishing up our third year with that program.
And it was just an amazing experience, because to do that Zoom and get that feedback, to just like do your research and look for those kind of opportunities, because they might not lead to publication, but they're definitely mentorships that can guide you along the way.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, so I want to jump over to Denise and ask, are you working on anything new? And what can readers get excited about?
I have nothing in the publication pipeline right now. I'm just working on some different manuscripts and haven't been submitting quite yet. Few picture books, some with an environmental bent. I'm also working on a middle grade that's about a boy, gray whales off the Baja California coast. which I'm really excited about. So yeah, I've got a lot going on, just nothing ready to get out there yet.
Fantastic. How about you, Daniela?
I also write middle grade novels, and I spent the last 2 years really just challenging myself and trying to learn something new. And I just completed my first middle grade graphic novel script. And I'm really excited about it. It focuses on a young Chicana in Texas who dreams about being a Formula One race car driver one day. And it's a really exciting book. And, you know, I'm over here just crossing my fingers for good news about it. I also have lots of other picture books and stuff that are, you know, at various stages. But my book, Welcome Home, Esmerelda, I still have a few months till it's going to come out. So a lot of my focus is going to be on that.
Fantastic. How about you, Ana? What are you working on?
Fourthly, I have 5 picture books coming up. And I have a chapter book series with Charlesbridge, but with the Move books coming out. And I have another book with Charlesbridge called Sticky Hermana that I'm very, very excited because I just saw the illustrations. Olivia Castro, right? Olivia de Castro. And the illustrations are so funny, so funny. I really, really love her illustrations. So I'm very excited about this one. It's coming 2025. And I also wrote a graphic novel, Daniela, a middle grade. It is on submission. So I'm also crossing my fingers that somebody likes that.
Fantastic. And how about you, Gabriella?
I actually have a book coming out, but not until 2027. And so it's unannounced, but it centers around the question of how do you make your dreams come true? And it also touches on effort over outcome and just kind of going for it. And I'm really excited about a nonfiction picture book that's really close to my heart, and a chapter book series. And I already wrote the first book on that. So I'm really excited to just polish those and see if Karen likes them.
There you go. All right. Well, it sounds like there's really very exciting stuff coming from all of you. I want to finish in a way that none of you are prepared for. So just take a second for that. But I think that when we have these kinds of conversations with, you know, groups of authors who have not met each other before in person, sometimes have met, you know, virtually, but don't really know each other. I think it's such an interesting thing to have a conversation like this and to talk about publishing and books and all the things that come with making books for kids. And so I wanted to just end with each of you, just choose one of these 3 and then finish it however you want. So and this is in terms of the conversation we just had, or in terms of any of the experience you've had in making your book. So I'm surprised that, I hope that, or I'm glad that. So choose one of those 3 and then finish it for us. So I'm surprised that, I hope that, or I'm glad that. And whoever wants to go first can go first.
I can go first because I want to pick Gabriella. Because since I read her story, I want to say that I'm surprised to learn that really Max is your son. And I'm happy that you got all those advice, mentorship.
I am very glad that I had this experience and got to meet all of you. I feel incredibly honored to be a part of this group and to learn from you and to hear about your awesome experiences in your books. And I'm ready to jump on. And
I was surprised to know about those facts, Karen. I kind of want to move to New Mexico now with Daniela. And I'm also really glad about the work Daniela is doing, because I'm not as familiar with her book since it's coming out in 2025. I know there's a huge representation of Hispanics in the military in the United States. And I haven't seen that many books about those kiddos. And I'm so excited for you, Daniela. Is this your debut book?
It is my debut, yes.
Yeah, so I'm excited to read that. And thank you for writing about your experience.
Thank you. Okay, I'm glad that Denise's book centers a little girl in the middle of mariachi. I grew up with listening to mariachi bands, weddings and church and different things. And it's so great to see a little girl at the center of your story, Denise. Of course, there's a big male presence in mariachi. There always has been. And to see that little girl trying and getting excited about it, I'm really hoping it's going to get a lot of young girls excited about mariachi. Mariachi.
Excellent. Well, thank you all. Muchas gracias for your time and for writing your books to begin with, and for working with Charlesbridge as well. We are just so grateful to be able to work with so many diverse creators and to really make sure that the market stays diverse, and particularly with the Latine population, because as we know, it's growing, and those statistics are very telling about why we need books about Latine kids, but that we also need them in Spanish as well. So I'm thrilled that all 4 of your books also are coming out or came out in Spanish as well. So thank you all so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and of your week. And thanks again for your time for making this happen.